Hey guys, Eli Copperman here. It's time for another episode of Eli's Thoughts. And today, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the upcoming Netflix series, The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. Now, before I get into the actual show itself, I guess I might as well give my own brief thoughts on The Dark Crystal and how I feel about that film. So, for those who don't know, The Dark Crystal was a 1982 fantasy film co-directed by Jim Henson, the creator of The Muppets. And unlike most products featuring the Muppets, not only was it a completely different and very original fantasy film, but it was also much darker and a lot more serious than a lot of the other stuff that Jim Henson had made with the Muppet characters. In fact, a year before that film was released, he had directed The Great Muppet Caper, which was another one of the Muppet films, and that film was obviously very comedic, but that's beside the point. So The Dark Crystal itself, although it wasn't that big of a hit upon its original release, it did gain a cult following for people who grew up with it on VHS and all that jazz. Now, as for my thoughts on the film, I just think overall it's fine. You know, it's just okay. The hard work and craft that was put into the film is amazing, like absolutely astounding. Like the puppetry, the sets, the freaking landscapes, just all that. It was just so meticulously well crafted. And there's no denying that Jim Henson and his team put a lot of hard work and effort into making the world seem as fresh and original as possible. Unfortunately, where the film falls flat is its story, as it's really predictable, as it's just the whole prophecy stuff where the young one has to save the good guys from the bad guys before they all join forces together and all that kind of crap. And the two main characters, Jen and Kira, are really not all that interesting. Like, the most interesting characters in the films are the villains, the Skeksis, and that's only because of their designs and their weird personalities. Like, they're a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, the film looks beautiful, but it doesn't feel all that great. That being said, I definitely understand the appeal behind it. The full originality it has in play is amazing. There are definitely a lot of creative ideas, and even at that, I don't blame Jim Henson for how this ended up, but we'll get into that a little later. So, fast forward to, at the very least, this decade, when the film has grown much bigger in terms of popularity and in terms of its cultural impact. A couple years ago, it was announced that Netflix would be making a prequel series to that said film, in which it would be titled, as stated before, Age of Resistance. So now, they happened to release a teaser trailer not too long ago. In fact, they released it a few days ago at this point, or at least by the time I'm recording this. So, why am I bringing this all up? Why not? Let me tell you, I'm actually really excited for this. And this is not just because they're using practical effects for this. That's right. Maybe they're using some CGI in this, but for the most part, there are legitimate practical effects in the film, guys. They're using actual puppets like the original film, and even those giant weird suits and the maquettes. It's all coming back. That's so dope. I just think that's amazing. And this is mainly because they got the Henson Creature Shop to work on the film, as well as the conceptual designer of the original film, Brian Ford, to create the puppets and sets for the series. But that's not the main reason I'm excited for this. The main reason? It's because this is what The Dark Crystal should have been. It shouldn't have been one movie. It should have been a whole series. And my point kind of relates to The Odd Ones Out when he said that The Dark Crystal really should have been a series, not a movie. And he was right. Now, there have been semi-follow-ups to the film that are mainly books that kind of go into the history of Thra and all that, such as The World of the Dark Crystal. But those are long after the film. And actually, going back to Jim Henson, it's been said that he had a lot, and I mean a lot more, planned for the Dark Crystal in terms of narrative and storytelling and all that jazz. Like, he had a lot more ideas packed, but obviously he could not fit them all into the movie, which makes a lot of sense. That being said, though, given the amount of effort and planning that went into the development of this Dark Crystal story and all that jazz, it really proves that Henson needed to make a series instead of a movie, or he at least should have made it into a TV series instead, or a book series, whichever. Because Say what you will about Labyrinth, but that works a lot better as a movie. You know, it's just one simple story about a girl who needs to rescue her little baby brother from an evil David Bowie Goblin King. That film is meant to be a very basic fantasy story. Whereas The Dark Crystal, there was clearly a lot more planned for it, given that it has the Skeksis and the Mystics and all these different creatures all throughout the film. So there was definitely a lot more room for padding and all that jazz that they could have handled if it were a series, but obviously not for a movie. So with that said, considering that this is a planned 10-episode long series, or at the very least for one season, and by the way, each episode is planned to be an hour long, then that proves that there's going to be a lot more substance. In fact, I don't know if this will be the main narrative of the actual show itself, but one notable arc that was highlighted in the trailer is the story of how the Skeksis came into power with the help of the Dark Crystal. And anyone who's a fan of the Skeksis like me should be looking forward to that. And besides, we must also be looking forward to how the Mystics became together. I think I went off track there. Doesn't matter. But in addition to that, it states that the real synopsis of the series is mainly the tale of three Gelflings, Deet, Ryan, and Bree, who, and I quote, discover the horrifying secret behind the Skeksis' power and set out to ignite the fires of rebellion to save their world.
Link to the article that I just quoted in the description below.
But anyway, so with that said, I should probably mention this. If, in fact, we are following these characters, then I really, really, really hope they're better than Jen and Kira. Because, as I stated before, Jen and Kira are the least interesting characters in the original movie. They are so flat and forgettable. If anything, like, their bland, pancake-like faces pretty much represent the characters themselves. Their puppets are meh. Their voices are meh. They're all meh. I wouldn't even mind if they're the heroes, but the film doesn't really do much of anything to make us care for them. So I really hope that these three Gelflings are a lot more interesting. If anything, maybe they could be Jen's ancestors, because the idea was that Jen and Kira were the last of their kind, so having these three Gelflings could be really interesting, you never know. But yeah, in addition to that, the series is also having an all-star cast, such as Anya Taylor-Joy as Bree, Taron Egerton as Ryan, Natalie Emmanuel as Deet, Alicia Vikander, Helena Bonham Carter, Mark Strong, Simon Pegg, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Keegan-Michael Key of all people, Mark Hamill, Natalie Dormer, and a lot more. Andy Samberg. Okay. Oh my god, we're gonna hear Harvey Fierstein.
Oh, I can't wait to hear his raspy voice as one of the Muppets.
How much you want to bet he's gonna voice that weird Fizbit dog creature? You know, the one that went... Oh my god, I would love it. But please, bring back the voices of the Muppets to voice some of those characters. That would be fucking dope. Which, it's funny, because apparently in the original Dark Crystal film, they actually added a lot of dialogue in post, because originally the Skeksis and the Mystics and a lot of the other creatures were supposed to have their own original language, but it confused test audiences, so they made them speak English instead. So holy fuck, we need to have a lot more characters that just speak. Has Eli Copperman lost his mind? Yes. Yes, I have.
And I'm proud.
And one more thing I should mention, folks. Louis Leterrier, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name or not, is directing all 10 episodes of the series. His past credits include Transporter 2, The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, Now You See Me, and Clash of the Titans? Oh boy. Okay, but even if this guy's filmography isn't by any means perfect, at the very least, he does have experience in action and fantasy films, so I do wish him the best of luck in this. In fact, he actually shared a message for fans on the official Dark Crystal website, which expressed his love and admiration for the world Jim Henson had created. His message says, and I quote, "As a filmmaker, one of my earliest influences was Jim Henson's masterpiece, The Dark Crystal, a movie that brought to life a universe rich in detail and teeming with incredible characters. The creativity in film was limitless and groundbreaking for that time, restricted only by the special effects tools of its day. As I envision Age of Day Resistance, I am most excited about joining today's film techniques with the practical visual effects that are such an integral part of the Dark Crystal. The artistry, the craftsmanship, the performances, and of course, the puppets. So there. We can all look forward to that. So with all that said and done, I don't know about any of you, but whoo-de-lolly, I got something to look forward to in the future, or at the very least within the next couple of months. I am so excited, guys, because if there's one thing we can expect from anything related to a Jim Henson project, it's that at the very least, there's a lot of good stories waiting for us. Because Jim Henson was originally a pretty good storyteller. He even made a series in the 80s called The Storyteller. So with this new Dark Crystal project, woo man, I am looking forward to all the different stories that could be told. Because the original Dark Crystal, in many ways, it's kind of like a fairy tale being told to a child when they're about to go to sleep. So in this case, the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance series is kind of like a whole collection of books just waiting to be told by the right person, to share them to the world. Anybody wanting to influence people just like how the Dark Crystal movie influenced others. I know I said the movie itself is just okay, but it can definitely inspire many. Just like how it inspired Louis Leterrier and even the Jim Henson Creature Shop to continue these stories, to continue the world building, to continue the mythos, to continue everything. And look, you can say, oh, well, George Lucas did that with Star Wars and Peter Jackson did that with The Hobbit. Yeah, but those were just pointless movies, whereas this thing should be told. These stories should be told to us because that way we can have a lot more substance to something that was never fully finished. The Dark Crystal was fully realized, it just wasn't told in its entirety. At least not in terms of a visual media besides books. So now with this series, there's a chance. And that's why I'm looking forward to it. Alright folks, that's all I've got to say. And so to end this off, I would like to know from you guys, what do you think of both the Dark Crystal movie and the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance? In terms of the movie, do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's just meh like me? And in terms of the upcoming series, are you excited for it? Are you not excited for it? Do you think, maybe this could work, but it's just not my cup of tea? Either way, if you want to check it out, you will be able to once it premieres on August 30th, 2019, directly on Netflix, baby. Hehehe. And so with that said and done, I will catch you guys later.